Very good evening to all our viewers tuning in tonight. Welcome to the evening review, the first edition of the week. My name is Toivon Jabela, your host. Let's look at some of the headlines that are in tomorrow's edition of Namibian Sun. Tonight on the show, we are very excited to be joined by a son and daughter of Namibia anti-apartheid hero Anton Lubowski. That is his son Almo and daughter Nadia, who are speaking to us all the way from Cape Town, I believe, in South Africa. Good evening, Almo and Nadia. Thank you for making time really to be with us this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Wonderful. Thank you really for making time on short notice also. On Saturday, the 12th of September, it marked the 32nd, I suppose, sorry for my mathematics, anniversary or commemorative anniversary of the passing of your father, who passed away on that day in 1989. How is the family remembering Anton this year? I know that every year there's always something organized, especially in South Africa where you live. How are you doing it this year? How did you do it this year? Maybe starting with Almo.
So the anniversary of my dad's assassination was yesterday, on Sunday, the 12th of
Sunday,
September.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. We spent a wonderful day. My sister organized a family constellation session where we went out and spent the day with myself, my mom, and my sister. And in the evening we just had some nice dinner with the rest of the family, my kids, my wife, and Nadia's partner and her kids. And it was a very peaceful, nice, commemorative day. The 32nd anniversary of his assassination.
And then there is also the formal event that takes place, but this year it is happening on the 28th of September because we have the third annual memorial lecture that takes place in Stellenbosch.
Yeah.
And normally that's always been on the 12th, but this year, due to the calendar and due to the fact that the 12th falls on a Sunday, we're having it on the 28th of September.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think it's a befitting way to do things for one of the most respected liberation icons of our country. Just while we are on that, is it because of your geographic location that these events normally take place in South Africa, or there isn't enough appetite for similar activities in Namibia, especially from the peers of the former peers of your father?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. To be honest, we were approached by the University of Stellenbosch around four years ago, and 3 years ago we had the first annual memorial lecture for my father, Anton Lubowski. I think you're right. I think it's been a matter of some or other appetite and people not necessarily always taking an interest in Namibia, unfortunately. We are hoping that the event and having it at Stellenbosch for the third year now, and for them being very enthusiastic about hosting such an event, that we could definitely look at a co-event in Namibia of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
We did actually have that conversation with the alumni of, because Stellenbosch has quite a large alumni in Namibia, and we're wanting to have that discussion. But strangely, you've hit a bit of a nerve with that question, to be honest, because it's a bit strange that there isn't something like this in Namibia.
We did want it. We definitely are open to it. I've been trying to, come up to Namibia much more regularly, reconnect with people up there, to show, some face, even though we live in South Africa, and there are, quite specific reasons for that initially, for moving to South Africa. And, at this point in time, practically this is where our life is now, and it's very difficult to move that. But I myself have always been trying to get back into making contacts in Namibia and things like that, and it's been slow progress. So it's not a matter of us not wanting to do it. We definitely want to. People know I'm around. People know how to get hold of me. So yeah, it's the appetite. It's interesting that no one wants to take up something along those lines. He was Namibian. He died a Swapo member, and he's at Heroes Acre. So it's really just a matter of people taking up the initiative to do that, and we will support it as a family.
Indeed. And just along that line is also my thoughts now. On days like this, do you receive, at least now, events are a different thing, but in terms of really the courtesy being extended to your family on a day like this, maybe from Namibian leaders who worked closely with your father during the liberation struggle, do you get, for example, yesterday, today, did you receive any kind of communication from Namibia, people just saying, remain strong, we remember your father?
No.
No, we don't. We don't hear from anyone at all, unless I maybe put out something on Twitter in remembrance. I may get 1 or 2 likes or comments or, things like that, but no one reaches out to us. I think if you could recall, Toivo, about 5 years ago, you and I had a conversation, and you printed an article for us or some questions you had about 5 years ago. This was at the beginning of President Hage Geingoeb's term, his first term. And, we at that point, if you recall, I was very supportive of his presidency. My sister and I gave some details of our skills as well, that we have on offer, our experience and our education and our willingness to be involved in Namibia. But no one's reached out to us yet. We've tried many times. Recently, I also contacted the president's offices. I've got an interest in the long term, perhaps to represent Namibia as an ambassador. That's one of my goals and passions one day, especially maybe even in Germany, because we do have German roots. And a good friend of my dad, Hartmut Ruppel, well, not Hartmut Ruppel, he was the Attorney General, but also a friend after the first independence. But Hanno Rumpf was the first German ambassador, also a good friend of my father. And that's something that I want to look into as well. But we didn't get any feedback. I got I think 1 phone call from someone in the presidency's office, and that was about it. So we're still waiting for some kind of connection, some kind of meeting. And my sister and I are very keen on meeting Hage Geingoeb, as he was a good friend of my father and colleagues towards the end. They even had a very long conversation walking down. At that time, it was, I think, Kaiserstrasse. It's now Independence Avenue. So we'd love to chat to him, and we'd love to give some support to Namibia. We're ready to serve him. But other than that, we can't. We need to live our own lives as well here. We need to carry on with our own work. But we're ready. were ready to be called upon.
And I just want to say that, like I said earlier, you've touched a bit of a nerve, because, you know, it hasn't been from lack of trying from our side, and the silence, which also Incorruptible by Evelyn Brunet speaks about, the silence about his death, just seems to raise suspicions for us. And we keep trying to sort of make contact to say, but, you know, is there not a number of things that we could talk about or engage with about, because the contribution my father made to the country and to independence is too big to ignore. And yet the silence seems odd.
Yeah, and that is exactly also why, Almo, you spoke about that walk in that street. A couple of years ago, maybe 2013 or so, I can't remember the year very well, there was your mother actually said something to that effect. And I think she was making a point to say, you were sort of speaking, of course, to the president, Hage Geingob, at the time, to say, you were sort of the last people to have been in contact with my husband. Can you maybe come forth and share what were some of the last things he said to you, maybe as we continue to search answers in this whole thing? And I don't think the president, if I remember correctly, responded kindly to that. He made all sorts of threats, and through his lawyers, I remember. Do you think that maybe that kind of friction might have led to the current situation, this deafening silence now from Namibia side?
So let me just give you a little bit more of a factual rundown of that. And of course, my mother and the president having a bit of a public interaction, you know, may have some effect now. However, what happened was, when initially we were asked about my father being moved to Heroes Acre, which we are very grateful for, and President Hage Geingob was the president during that time. So there was definitely an influence from him to make sure that happens. So we don't want to forget that we're very thankful to the Swapo party, as well as anyone involved, and President Hage Geingob was involved in that. At that time that we were asked, and I think this was around 2015, 14, 15, around there, where I was then in August on Heroes Day, there was a ceremony at Heroes Acre for him. So at that point, my sister and I were actually not able to attend that ceremony. Unfortunately, we had prior engagement, and it was quite short notice. My mother, however, did attend. She was treated very well. She was flown there to the ceremony. She was at the ceremony. She didn't get a chance to have a conversation with President Hage Geingob at the time. The representative that came to tell us about this and ask for our permission, who was sent apparently to ask us about this, said that don't worry, that we would still organize a meeting with President Hage Geingob, with the two of you, and have an opportunity to chat about this. That never came. We asked a couple of times to do that, and my mother then, on her own, and you know, we are very close as a family, but at the end of the day, we're also still individuals. My mother decided to send what was potentially meant to be an open letter to a couple of people that she had made contact with in Namibia. The idea was at that point not to have the letter published as of yet, but I think one of the people that she sent it to leaked it or brought it to the quick attention of the president at the time. And it obviously did cause some issues, and we decided that she would then pull back for me. I think still very much a promise that was made, which has not been fulfilled. And it's not only because of that interaction. That promise was made way before then, for my sister and myself to have a conversation with Hage Geingob. Not necessarily about anything specific, but really just to touch base and to, you know, see what else can be done and what else we can do to honor my father's legacy and look at some information around this.
Now, Nadia, the fact that your father is buried now at the Heroes Acre means that he is recognized as a veteran of the Namibian liberation struggle, and as policy dictates in Namibia, that comes with some sort of token. Has that reached you guys? Has your family received anything from government in terms of those war veteran payments and stuff like that?
No. So, no, there hasn't been anything. And again, I just want to say that earlier in March this year, I did a road trip to Namibia with my family, and I get to take my 2 younger children, my oldest son, the name of Anton, and my daughter Freya. We went to go see the Heroes Acre memorial, and it was really moving. And I was really touched by that gesture from the Namibian government to give my father a place there. So I just do want to say that we're very appreciative about that. But other than that, no, there hasn't been anything. And again, my brother and I have really educated ourselves and done things on our own steam, right? So we educated. My big passion is in early childhood development, and my brother's is in law and finance. And, again, it's just a case of that we would really love to contribute to Namibia, but from my mother's point of view, it's been like we've been forced into exile. It's a very weird relationship with Namibia. We still go to Namibia once a year. Love Soul is always home when I'm there. But yeah, that's about it.
Also, we're not necessarily even asking for a handout, like a payment, like I think you're talking about in some respects, which I think, at least my mother would be entitled to more than just, she would be at least entitled to some kind of veterans pension from my father, having been essentially a war veteran. But, what we're actually asking for is really just our skills and our experience to open doors, in Namibia that we can contribute, and obviously also, earn our living from that and what we do. We're quite independent in what we do. We don't have formal jobs necessarily, and there's a lot of things we could contribute to Namibia. So, in fact, all we're asking for is some more doors to open and some more hands to be reached out and said, come join us here, come do this. As I said, one of my goals now is specifically to look into being an ambassador for Namibia as soon as possible. There was a round of appointments happening in March, I believe, this year. I made my intentions known before that. I didn't get any response around that. So, in the next 5 years, there are presidential appointments that can take place for that. So that's one of the things I thought I would want to do, because I'm a networker, I'm a connector, and I'm a strategist with legal and financial background. So it's more about, opening doors. It's more about more people reaching out, more people giving an opportunity to us, government, private sector, whoever. We're not looking for handouts, as I said. It's not what we're looking for. But yeah, that's just some of the ideas that we've got.
And the thing is that the reason that my dad has been recognized in Heroes Acre has largely to do with my mother's consistent uncovering and almost wanting his legacy to be recognized. If it wasn't for all her work and all her insistence, I'm not sure if that would have happened, to be honest.
Indeed.
And in the absence of justice of some sort, the second best thing you can have is just recognition and remembrance.
Yeah, indeed. No, fair enough. I'm asking the next question with utmost restraint. And that is really the events around the passing of your father. Of course, it's not memories that you would want to be reminded of all the time, but how old were both of you at the time? And do you have any recollection of how the news reached you? You must have been very young.
Yeah, so I was actually 3 days from my 11th birthday. So my birthday will be on Wednesday this week, on the 15th. And my dad passed on the 12th. So I was 10 turning 11. My sister was 9. We were in Cape Town at the time. My mother had separated from my father at the time, and we were living in Cape Town. Which I think, if you look back at life, it's one of those things. You know, it's probably a good thing. So we actually talked about it recently in another program on my dad's details around what he contributed and his death. And yeah, we were woken up in the morning of the 13th and told that my father had been killed. And yeah, it's something very difficult and very strange that young, you know. And we went back to his funeral, and it was a massive, big funeral. There were a couple of different ones. The main one being in Katatura, and the founding father, Sam Nujoma, was there, and all the family. And yeah, that's pretty much that. And so we're given an opportunity, which I do think is something that was necessary. I think for me as a child, it's unbelievable. You don't understand death. And we were actually given the opportunity to see my dad in the morgue, and saw that he had been shot, and especially through his head and his face, and realized that, yeah, this is it. He's definitely gone, because we had him in June, July in the holidays. There's a picture that it seems to be kept being shared on Facebook, where we even went with him to go register to vote in Katatura. And I'm going up to Ben Guru up to shake his hand, and Libertina Amadilla is also there. And so yeah, we were experiencing the where Namibia was going to be. And the following year, we were even then at the independence celebrations, because we did then move back to Namibia for some time after my dad's death, which was also difficult, because again, there was very little support for us. And my mother said that one of the reasons she decided to move to South Africa, to family that we had here, is because she was told there was still a lot of danger around at that time. So, you know, she felt it was the safest thing for us to rather move away again after about 3 to 4 years of being back in Namibia, after my dad's death.
Yeah. Okay. So I suppose, Nadia, that is your version too. You have nothing to add to that?
Yeah, it's a very difficult memory to recall.
Yeah, you were very young also. The second last question then is around the fact that no one was ever brought to justice in this regard. What is the status of, is there any pursuit of justice in this matter? Is it considered a closed one? What can you tell us about justice in this matter?
So, you know, one of the most difficult aspects of the justice aspect of my dad's death never being concluded is that it was during a period where Namibia and South Africa were actually still Southwest Africa and South Africa. But yet, one of the excuses that was received is this distinction between Namibia and South Africa. And I remember one of the most significant moments in my life around wanting to find just answers and understand what happened was shortly after the 20-year conspiracy. So that the murder was planned in South Africa and executed in Namibia. And the NPA were promising us that it's at the top of their agenda. They are going to deal with it. They want to find out find justice. And exactly 20 years later, we were saying that period has ended, and it's now no longer part of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, so that's just to understand that there was conspiracy to murder was a potential charge in South Africa by the National Prosecuting Authority here to take up that as a matter. And obviously murder, there's never a time that there's, I think it's conscription. What is it called? I'm a lawyer, sorry. When the time runs out to actually prosecute for that. For murder, that is obviously expired, and it's just a matter of the government and the prosecuting authorities of that country to take it up. So we have engaged previously with the prosecuting authorities in Namibia. It's difficult to say what their view is. They do mention lack of evidence, lack of witnesses. Obviously, the time has gone, on at this point in time. I think what we have recognized as one of the things that will eventually be up again is if somebody that knows something or was involved decides to step forward and give information that reopens the case.
But one thing needs to be said, that there has definitely not been enough political will to get to the bottom of this. And the only thing we're ultimately left with is there's certain people that need to die or need to pass or need to die before others will speak. And
someone needs to pass away so that someone else may be able to speak about it. But time is getting on. And sorry, what I was meant to say was prescription. So the conspiracy to murder charge prescribed in South Africa, and in Namibia the murder charge would never prescribe, but you would need new evidence and the political will and the prosecuting to do that. So really gotten any formal communication from prosecuting authorities or the Namibian government as to why exactly they have not decided to pursue anything.
And we've tried.
So they form only assumptions. These are only things we wonder about. I would say at least the Southern prosecuting authorities eventually gave us a formal response to say after 20 years the conspiracy to murder charge, potential charge has prescribed. So at least we had a formal response. We're yet waiting for a formal response from the prosecuting authorities as to why exactly, point for point, they don't want to prosecute or aren't prosecuting.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, on the lighter note, I mean, obviously, like you said, you were both very young when your father passed away, so you were literally kids. But you ought to know a thing or two that you think, in terms of your personality or your thinking or whatever, that you are actually your father's child, even from what you hear from your mother and from what you read widely in the papers. We start with Nadia. What do you think you have inherited from your father in terms of just his personality?
It's a difficult question to answer, but I suppose from what people have said, that I look a lot like him. So I sort of look a lot like him. And I think I sort of adopted his ideology. I think, I understand why he fought as hard as he did, and I understand why he was giving his life for this. So another quality, I suppose, is that I'm a bit of a fighter. So when I really believe in something, I really believe in something. You're not going to really stop me from fighting for that. And the thing is, it's always about humanity. It's always about the good of humanity. And that could be a role model that he played, because being 9 years old, you have observed and seen a lot of what your parents do. Yeah, and the thing is, one of the memories that my mother repeats to us quite often is, he always said he needs to do this for many reasons, but one of them was that he couldn't ever look his children in the eye if he ever found out about this evil, system in South Africa called apartheid, and we would ask him, so what did you do about it? He couldn't look his children in the eyes and not say he did something. And that's just something I'll be forever grateful for, because he stood up against something that's way bigger than himself and fought for that and was willing to die for it, and did.
And I mean, there's a lot of people that have obviously died, disappeared in the struggle, but not many white people. So I think one needs to remember that although we need to remember many heroes that contributed to the Namibian struggle, it's not easily that someone from another race or culture stands up that vehemently for someone else. And that is something that Judge Albie Sachs, Constitutional Court judge in South Africa, actually mentioned at the first Anton Lubowski Memorial Lecture, to say that a white Afrikaner stood up to an oppressive system and got killed and assassinated for it. That is slightly different to you fighting and standing up for your own people, right? I think a lot of people do that. So I think what I've inherited is, I definitely see and look at other people in other situations and try and understand them, and if need be, stand up for them. I've had to stand up and protect myself for what my father did from an early age at school. We even had to change schools from the German school in Windhoek to St. George's diocesan school, which was already multiracial, because I had to stand up every day, against people, other white people that were asking questions about why my dad was involved in politics and being ridiculed for that. So I stand up for myself, I stand up for other people. And other than that, I'm just probably very, very physically strong, like my dad. I'm extremely strong.
Looks like it.
Literally, physically. And I'm really big.
That's a very good one. Nadia and Almo, thank you very much really for your time. This is all the time we had today, but it was extremely informative. So we appreciate your time, and we just wish you well again in this difficult week of commemorating your father, who obviously is your father now, because it's clear now from what I've heard from you, you are indeed your father's children. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for reaching out, and thank you for chatting to us and being part of keeping his memory alive. We do really appreciate that from you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Almo and Nadia Loboski, the son and daughter of the late anti-apartheid activist Anton Lubowski, who was assassinated on the 12th of September 1989 in Windhoek. Thank you for watching.